Hi, and welcome to another virtual craft with the Paul Sawyer Public Library. My name is Diane, and I am the Community Service Librarian here at Paul Sawyer. Tonight we will be doing a craft in celebration of Pride Month, which is this June. It is called a Pride DIY Rainbow Feather Pen, and you can wear this pen during the month of June to celebrate Pride, or wear it all year round to show your support. Let's get started. If you signed up for this craft and received a craft kit, you will be receiving a longer piece of purple yarn. You'll get 6 short pieces each of red, yellow, green, blue, and purple to create your rainbow feather. You'll get a piece of a thicker gauge craft wire. It is thicker, so it's a little bit more sturdy than some of the other craft wires, but it's still malleable, so you can still move it around, twist it around if you need to, and work it how you need to for the craft. So you'll get the piece of wire. You're also going to get a kind of a little template for the backing on the feather. You're going to get a safety pin to put on the back of your pen, a foam brush for putting the glue on, and then also some glue. So our first step that we're going to take tonight is to take the piece of wire and the longer piece of purple yarn, and we're going to hot glue that on to the piece of wire to kind of wrap the piece of wire. I didn't mention earlier, you will also need a hot glue gun and a pair of scissors at home when you create this craft. So to start, we're going to make sure your glue gun is hot. We're going to put a little dab of glue just at the end of one of the ends of the wire. Keep in mind this does dry very quickly, and be careful because you don't want to burn yourself. And just kind of start twisting that on to the wire. If you have some little flyaways, you can trim those off from the end of the yarn, or we can glue those down later. We just want to get it started going. Put another little dab of glue and continue to wrap the yarn. You could also do this with regular white glue, but it would take much longer to dry. So I found that hot glue works much better for this part. You don't want to get too much glue on there, just a thin enough layer for it to stick. If you get too much glue, it will squirt through your yarn in between where you wrap. Do try and wrap it pretty tightly though, so you're not really showing the silver of the wire. Once you get to the end, just kind of snip off the excess yarn, with a little bit of the yarn left on the end, and just kind of glue that over the end of the wire to cover that. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Put our glue aside for a minute. And now we're going to start tying on our yarn colors to create the rainbow effect. So you'll choose which end you want to be the top and which end you want to be the base of your feather. Do note that the base of your feather, you're going to have probably about 1 inch, maybe a little bit less, that's going to show just the bottom of the feather. The other end will be covered with the different colors. So I'm just going to have this be the top, and then I'm going to take one of my pieces. We're going to go in rainbow order. So you're going to do red, yellow, green, blue, and then purple. We're going to take that onto the top as close to the end as you can without it slipping off, and we're just going to tie this on. You are not going to make a knot. You're just tying it as securely as possible to the end. If you have a little bit of the purple sticking out at the top, that's fine. Once we get the glue on the feather and start brushing it upwards, we can cover that up. So just tie it as tightly as possible and then continue on. And you're going to want to tie the next one on and just continue that process. Get them as close as possible. We don't want any purple showing through in between if we can help it. Once you get all of your yarn pieces tied on, it should look something like this. Next, we will move on to the gluing portion of the craft. Okay, so we're going to pick out which side we want to be the back, and I'm going to do this side as the back. And I'm going to take the sponge brush, and it's slightly damp. I found that was the better way to do it. And then we're going to brush a layer of glue on the back of this, just to sort of start shaping it into the feather kind of shape. You want to get it pretty well saturated too, so don't go light with it. Now I'm actually going to turn it over and put a layer on the other side as well before we put it on the backing, just to get, again, start getting it into the shape that we want. If you hold it by the end, you can kind of start shaping it into that feather shape as well, because you want there we go. the red is actually going to come together at the top to create the point of the feather. So kind of shape it with your fingers. It's just white glue, so it'll wash right off your hands. Okay. Once you start to get the shape, lay it down for just a second. We're going to take our backing here and put a layer of glue on it. And then take your feather and place it onto the backing, and then using your fingers kind of use that to help you shape it. Now obviously you're going to have some ends here that we're going to trim off, but just use that backing as your guide. From there, I would actually go back in with your brush and another generous layer of glue, because this is what will hold the top of it together as well as the back. Try to make sure that you have all of that backing covered, the yarn is covering it, and that you have the yarn good and saturated. Then I would, if you have a piece of wax paper or something like that, I would take this and lay it on that just to dry. Just to make sure it doesn't stick to whatever if you have a paper surface, you don't want it to stick. And then you're going to allow it to dry until it's pretty well set up, and then you will take your scissors and trim around the edge, and I'll show you what that looks like here momentarily. Once it's dried, trim around the edge. Also, if you notice, this is going to take several hours to dry. To dry thoroughly for the backing and the front to get to the stage we want it to get to. But if you come back at one point and notice that there's some yarn that's just not sticking together, or there's a little bald spot in there, or just something's not coming together well, just go back in with your glue and your brush and add just a little bit more glue. And then you can kind of piece it together, pinch it together, shape it with your fingers however you need to, and then allow that to dry for a little bit longer. Okay. Once your feather has dried sufficiently, then you're just going to take your scissors, and I'll show you from the one we just did. You'll notice the difference. We just kind of use that template on the back, just to use that to make where we trim to just that shape. We're going to trim that off. Once it dries a little bit more, it's much easier to trim, and you can still shape it up, form it into the shape that you want if it still has a little give on it. Again, watch as it's drying, if you need to glue any little stray pieces down. But once you trim it up according to the template, this is what it's going to look like. And you have your rainbow feather. So the only thing that leaves left for us to do is to glue the pin onto the back of the feather. So what we'll do is we'll just open our pin up decide which way you want to put it on. You're going to open it up, and then we're going to do a generous amount of glue that's going to hold that backing of the pen onto the backing of the feather. So we're just going to do line of glue. Make sure you put it on there before it has time to dry. And just hold it there. Make sure you give it long enough. Let me give it a few more moments there. Any little glue strings you have, you can always pull off. I got a little dab there, but that is going to be on the back, so it's not going to show. All right. As soon as it sits, then you can close your pen up, and it is ready to go. You can pin it onto a jacket, onto a bag, or anywhere that you like as you celebrate Pride Month. Thank you for joining us for this Pride DIY rainbow feather pen. I hope you've enjoyed the craft this evening, and I hope that you will join us for another virtual program here very soon. Once you have finished your pen, we hope that you will log on to our Facebook and post a photo of your final product, or even better, a photo of you wearing your pen, or wherever you've chosen to display your pen. We'd love to see what you came up with. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great night.